and China, Abortion, and Buddhism. China's one child policy, created in 1980, was initiated to control China's overwhelming population. China is the world's most populous country, with over 1 billion by mid 1984. According to Robert K. Wyman, China's fertility rate exceeded 6 children per woman before the one child policy. The increasing overpopulation led to food shortages throughout China. Eventually, with the addition of Mao Zedong's Great Leap, China obtained a major famine issue. Stated in the Demography of China's 1958 to 1961 famine, the officially reported crude death rate in China was estimated at 25.4 billion per thousand in 1960. Roughly 30 million people starved to death. With the threat of approximately 200 million of China's population about to enter into their childbearing years, China initiated its one-child policy in 1980, restricting one child per family. According to the article, do high birth rates hamper economic growth? As a result of the one-child policy, the annual population growth rate lowered to 1.4% by 1986. Various measures were introduced to secure compliance with the new policy. In particular, one-child certificates were issued beginning in 1979 and offer a variety of benefits to couples who promise to have only one child. Any pregnancies of women without birth permits were terminated by abortion or remedial measures within a time period corresponding to policy regulations. Due to this new policy, the abortion rate increased from 14% to 18% by 1987, almost doubling in 12 years. Today we have Jennifer to elaborate on this subject.
The Chinese data showed that 13 million abortions are performed each year at an average of 35,000 per day. Since 1971, 336 million abortions have been performed in China. It is not rare that 55% of women in China have abortions. Most of the millions of abortions that are performed in China are due to rape. China's strict birth control rules reduce couples to one birth. However, there are exceptions to this matter. Minorities are allowed to have more than one child, and couples who are only children are permitted to have 2 children. By 1982, 124 boys were born for every 100 girls. And now we move on to Lafayette and Victoria on sex selection in China.
Hello. Today, we're going to be discussing sex-selective abortion and its impact on China. Sex-selective abortion is not only a problem for the present, but ultimately for the future of China. What happens when there are not enough women to men to marry, and then the legacy of the man's family cannot be passed down? According to the history of sex selection abortion and its impacts today, stated that when the motivation behind an abortion is to eliminate a fetus for the sole reason of that fetus having a gender, which is female, the foundation of this argument becomes insubstantial. Studies have also been conducted to examine the behaviors of men when gender imbalances exist. Such studies have shown that among these men, there are significant increase in mental illnesses, social disruptive behavior, lower self-esteem, depression, and suicidal thoughts compared to men who. With the decrease of women comes an increase in the demand for trafficked brides and an increase in prostitution, all due to sex selection abortion. The health implications of sex selection abortion. According to Beyond Boing the Boys, researchers note that a broad range of high-risk sex behaviors are often demanded by the surplus male clients, increasing the incidence of HIV and other sexually transmitted infections. According to Prenatal Sex Termination, Sex-Selective Abortion in Rural Central China addresses issues of the strong son preference resulting from Chinese families wanting to have a son, causing an increase in the abortion of a female fetus. Root cause is son preference. Regulations and laws cannot eliminate the practice if the root cause persists. Evidence of the rapid diffusion of prenatal sex termination technology in China is provided by the inland spread of the normal sex ratio at birth. Before technology for prenatal sex determination became available, rural Chinese tried to ensure the birth of a son by having more children. Preventative actions China can take to stop sex-selective abortion: enforce more strenuous regulations forbidding prenatal sex determination and sex-selective abortion, close monitoring of the uses of ultrasound B scans at hospitals and family planning stations, particularly at private clinics, might change the situation. Service providers can be educated about moral and legal issues related to prenatal sex determination and sensitized to the consequences of sex-selective abortion. Lastly, the public should be made aware of the future consequences of sex imbalances in the population at large. Here's Victoria with the continuation of the segment.
Today I'll be talking about sex-selective abortion in China. According to Biomed Central, the Chinese population policy was clearly a policy of controlling population growth, and abortions are clearly in the political arena. But there is also another factor that people in China are using as well. It's called sex-selective abortion. In China, there is an unnatural sex ratio at birth because families are favoring boys over girls. One of the main reasons for this is that women in rural China still marry into their husband's family and cannot inherit family land, so daughters are often perceived as having no value to parents. Although fetal sex determination is illegal in China, health professionals are still performing it and are being penalized for continuing the practice. China has a huge population already, and due to sex-selective abortion, the male population has increased drastically compared to the female population. Since there are more males than females, when the males reach the age to get married, they are left unable to do so in a society where marriage is regarded as virtually universal. Now to Daniel with the economic factors in China.
Hello. Today we'll be discussing the economic effects that abortion have had on China. China, as we know, is a country where abortions occur very regularly. From the International Business Times comes the figures that since 1971, more than 336 million abortions have been performed in China. Since 1980, more than 200 million sterilizations, both male and female, have been performed. Also, since 1980, more than 400 million women have been inserted with intrauterine devices. Now, you might be wondering why abortion is so common in China. First, sex education remains very low in the country, particularly in the rural areas. Chinese parents tend not to talk about the bird and the bees with their children, and schools aren't expected to fill the gap either. There's no national policy towards sex education, and of course, because of that, they find that a distraction from all important university exams. Now, secondly, there's the one-child policy, which was enacted in 1980, which was used in an attempt to limit the population growth, which has imposed stiff penalties on many Chinese families. Now, you might be figuring that might be those who have more than one child, which that leads to abortions as a practical solution to accidental pregnancies. China is also a prominent country to consider with this one-child policy because it is only a matter of time before the one-child policy has an effect on the Chinese economy, with millions of fetuses being killed who could eventually become productive citizens and contributed to the Chinese GDP. China is one of the many countries around the world that is looking at a decline in the youth workers, as the UN projects a number of factory workers aged 15 to 24 tend to decline by 27% to 164 million through the year 2025. On the other hand, since China implemented its one-child policy since 1979, approximately 400 million fetuses have been aborted who could have eventually helped contribute to its workforce in the future. And now we have Rena with the cost for the abortions.
As we focus on the abortion on this material, we're going to talk about the cost of abortion. It does not matter if it's forced or volunteer. Usually it's 500 yen, but that means in American dollars it's $80. And for the hospital stay, for a female to stay in the hospital, it will be 1,000 yen, and that means it's $161.25. And young students could have an extra 50% off just to get an abortion. It's the easiest way to make sure that they don't get fined for one child selection. The meals expenses, living expensive is very, very low compared to United States. Groceries, it will cost between $5.64 to $17.73 per week. And contraceptive pills, it also comes with very low cost too, and it's about $3.06. Thank you. Now we have Matt, who's going to talk about the religion factor of abortion.
Hello, my name is Matt, and I'm here to talk about the religious side of this debate. Buddhism at its center is focused on the 5 precepts, the first of these being an undertaking to observe the rule to abstain from taking a life. And what this means in a Buddhist sense is that all life is sacred, and you should not ever intentionally harm a living thing. All life deserves respect because it all has its place. And this, of course, raises a huge issue in the topic of abortion because in a Buddhist sense, a fetus could be considered a living thing, and killing that is a major karmic no-no. You don't do it. That being said, there is no explicit prohibition of abortion found in the scriptures, which is very strange considering how firmly against their beliefs it would be. And because of that, even though it's not in scripture, many devout Buddhists see it as a bad thing and are firmly against it. However, there is remarkable toleration in Buddhist Asia, China especially, for abortions to take place. It would be hard to find a perfect follower of any faith out there, and that is accepted in China and many other Asian countries, because while it may be against their faith, it's a necessary evil. And in the sense of China, religion doesn't get a say in their politics. The government has the one-child policy, and it would be laughable to think that any disagreements in Buddhist religion would be able to stop them from running their country how they need to. And that being the case, abortions take place all the time in Buddhist faith, and it is seen as something that just sort of has to happen. It's not praised, it's not a good thing, but it's accepted even though it goes against their beliefs. And actually, in Buddhism, abortion has a further conflict because it's sort of somewhere in between the commitment of not killing anything and compassion for a pregnant woman. On the one hand, you don't ever kill anything. It's just you shouldn't ever do that. But what if, say, the pregnant mother was going to die if this child is born, or there was just some horrible scenario surrounding it to where the mother would suffer? Then Buddhist principles teach compassion as well, and which one do you choose? And so abortion is often kind of accepted in scenarios like that. Like I said before, in China, all of the Buddhists could be firmly against this. It wouldn't matter. Their system doesn't support any one religion taking hold and making government decisions or having a huge say in politics. The government does what they do, and the rest, the minority religions and faiths and beliefs have to deal with it and come to terms with it in their own ways.
Today, I will be discussing the health risks and issues that women could encounter when having abortions. Due to the one-child policy in China, there are far more abortions than ever were prior to the one-child policy. Because of this law, all families that live in the cities were to only have one child. If they knew their first child would be a girl, more times than not, a woman would get an abortion in hopes to have a son. The sons are the ones who carry on the family name and take care of the elderly parents when they grow old. As to where the daughters get married and leave. In other places outside of the city, other families were allowed to have at least 2 kids if their first child was a girl. No matter where you live in China, all couples must have a birth permit before they start a pregnancy. Statistics show that women who have abortions are 3.4 times more likely to commit suicide versus people who never got pregnant. There was a study in 2009 that showed that there were 500 women committing suicide a day. That's 3,500 suicides per day, 15,000 suicides per week, and 182,500 suicides per year. Women are also 6 times more likely to commit suicide than a woman who were able to. Another risk that is extremely important to consider is cancer. Women who have a history of an abortion are more likely to get breast cancer. Between 45 and 50% of U.S. ladies experience impelled fetus removal of their first pregnancy every year. It is entrenched that an early full-term labor has a defense impact against breast growth in ladies. Breast nourishing has additionally been shown to have an unabrasive defense impact against bosom tumor. An expanding number of terms birth additionally secures against breast growth. This is the accompanying studies. These variables are free defensive elements against breast cancer. Aside from cancer, there are some other side effects that are not as threatening but still crucial to know. Cramping of the uterus, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, warmth, chills, headaches, dizziness, and fatigue. Hemorrhage requiring operation and possibly death. All these side effects would be a result
Well,
Oh,
there
of having
you
an
have
abortion.
it. As you can see, abortion is a very important subject in China. Based on the political standard, we believe that economic equality on our grid was more important to the society. Now, we believe that the higher class and the lower class should come together in order to mediate the problem. As a solution, we believe that contraceptives should only be applied to both classes in order to decrease the amount of fetuses that are killed a year. Now, with this being set in order, we know that it would not be something that would be very immediate, but it is something that will help the community. Along with this will prevent unnecessary fetuses from dying, and then that will also help the Chinese GDP by also having more citizens to grow up and get jobs to help the economy as well. So, we thank you for watching QNN. Have a nice night.